Hi everyone, my name is Miguel Magalhães and welcome to DeNites TV, the videocast about all things Web3 in Portugal and around the world. It has been a cold week here in Portugal and in Lisbon, where I'm based, but thankfully I have a warm company with me today and I'm going to introduce my guests. Firstly, Ramon Castillo, he's an account director for Hype Partners, which is a global Web3 marketing agency. Thank you for being with us here, Ramon.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
And also with me, I have Alexandre, who is the head of marketing for Liisa, which is a platform that combines AI with blockchain to help NFT investors to make faster and better decisions. How are you today, Alex?
Hey, Miguel. Thank you for the invite. Doing well, thanks.
A fun story between me and Alexandre. We kind of met a lot of years ago. We played tennis together, for those who don't know. And we haven't talked in loads of years. And this videocast gave us a chance to reconnect. So it's as good as a reason.
Nice to see you again.
as any topic. So moving on to the episode, we will have our usual structure. So we will do a quick recap of 3 stories that I chose from last week, and I'm going to ask our guests to comment on them. And then we will move on to our main topic today, which is marketing in Web3 and what are kind of the strategies that companies in this industry are using to get their platforms in front of users. So without losing time, let's move on to our quick recap. And the first story that I chose this week was the new collection from Yuga Labs, which is the company that's behind the Bored Ape Yacht Club, the monkeys that everyone for a while exhibits on their social media and to provide some sort of status. And they haven't, the last collection that they had put out was Other Side, and they were kind of quiet over the past months. Ramon, I'm going to ask with you, what should people know about this new collection? How is it different from the previous ones? And what was kind of the main story here?
So I think it's a pretty interesting one. It's called Sewer Pass. They are kind of going into the theme of sewers and poop and a few different items that are pretty funny. I think in the line of the type of stuff that Yuga Labs has been doing, it's pretty creative. They introduced a gamified element to the NFT collection that I think is very new. Basically, you have to buy the NFT and then you need to play the game. And the better you play, the more rewards you get and the more access to further developments of the collection and other collections you get. So I think it's really interesting. I think they're doing really well. From the one item or the one, let's say, conflict that I've been popping up is the story about the royalties. Apparently, some people are not too happy with the fact that they are blocking some of the marketplaces that don't allow them to charge royalties. Just for context, royalties means every time that one of the NFTs is sold after the mint, they're trying to charge a 2.5% on top of that. And honestly, in my opinion, I think it's fair. I think in general, I am a strong proponent of crypto businesses finding solid revenue models. So if they manage to monetize the collection in perpetuity thanks to that, I think it's fair enough. I think in general, crypto should strive to find sustainable models in general. And if the sales of the NFT collection stop, let's say in 3 years, they won't get any money from it. So they depend on keep doing the woodwork to keep that 2.5% flowing. So I think it's fair, to be honest. That's my opinion.
Alexandre, you have worked with NFT investors through your platform. How big of a deal is this topic of royalties being included when they decide if they want to invest in an NFT collection or not?
Yeah, I think, sometimes it's seen like a two-side face to a coin, because if it comes from like a free mint and they have royalties on the volume, most people think it's fair, but if it's an expensive mint and there's high royalties behind it, people just see it more as a cash grab. So it's a very conflicting theme, and there's no very there isn't like a middle ground on whether how people agree on it, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of the story that will unfold and has impact not only in NFT collections, as the Bored Ape and the other collections that Yuga Labs will keep launching in the future, but also when we talk about games or when we talk about music, that are industries that are more and more investing here. It will definitely be a cool, not necessarily cool, but an interesting battle between the platforms that are kind of exhibiting these NFTs and the people that are creating them. Moving on to the next story, and I really like this one because I think that it's always good to see innovative ideas, which is the story of Shiba Inu, the meme coin that followed the steps of Dogecoin over the past years, is thinking of launching its own layer 2 solution. Alexandre, why are they trying to do this, and what kind of repercussions this can have in an industry? Because Shiba Inu, despite being a meme coin, has a market cap of over 6 billion. It has reached like over 40 billion like 1 year ago or 1.5 years ago. Should we take this seriously, or is just another stunt?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely crazy thinking about how a meme coin started from a few years ago. Is now like in the top 15 of the biggest market cap coins, right? But I think, I think their strategy now is really to enhance their user experience and solidify their place in the market. So, I think the launch of this layer 2 will have an expected drive for it. And of course, with the first announcement like back in November, and now with the beta launch, it also incentivizes the pump, so to say, of other meme coins that don't really have anything to do with this specific announcement.
Ramon, the layer 2 question has been kind of the main topics in Web3 because in theory, right, layer 2s will help the overall layer 1 blockchains and the people who are trying to work with blockchain get better scalability, faster transactions, all of that. Will something like what Shiba Inu is doing help anyone? Will it fight with solutions that Ethereum, Solana, and other bigger and more credible networks have been developing?
I would say in the grand scheme of things, probably not. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there are plenty of great layer 2 solutions in Ethereum, Polygon being one of the leaders, Arbitrum, Optimism. I think they're doing the business development aspect of developing their own layer 2s very well. I'm not super familiar with the technical details of this Shiba Inu layer 2. I don't know if they're bringing any technical innovation to the layer 2 game, so we get something, I don't know, better, faster transactions, more TPS, cheaper something. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. I think they're capitalizing on the brand, which again is fair enough. That's something they should do. I think they might potentially, to an extent, kill the meme by trying to make it too serious. I think the fun of the meme is that there is no purpose. Now they're trying to give it one. But it might work out for them. I would say that in the grand scheme of things, especially with the overall blockchain space, but especially and also with layer 2s, I'm not sure they will get too far, but best of luck to them.
Yeah, I'm curious to see once they try to be a serious business, and if the market rules start like being applied to them as well, what will their future look like? But it's another story that we'll keep an eye on. And lastly, the third and final story that I wanted to get a comment, and I will start with you again, Ramon, is the story of the MiCA. I don't know how to say it in English, but it's basically stands for markets in crypto assets, and it's the European Union bill that it's trying to create the first framework to regulate how we supervise digital assets and kind of lay the groundwork to protect consumers. This bill was supposed to be voted next month, but it was delayed. Overall, how, and you work with the marketing of several projects, how important is this bill for projects that are now trying to grow, communicate, get into new markets. Is this going to have any effect on Web3 companies?
I think it's definitely going to have an effect in Web3 companies, both now and in the foreseeable future with the industry. I think regulation would have to happen sooner or later, to be honest, especially in the last couple of years. Hacks, people losing billions of dollars in scams and Ponzi schemes and all kinds of things. I think eventually the regulators would have to jump into it and try to put some order. I think it's very important that the industry works with those regulators so they don't create this regulation in isolation. I honestly, in general, I think it's good. I think the industry should be regulated, but we just need to work with them so that regulation is done in the interest both of users, retail, and the industry growth.
Alexandre, Europe it's known for being harsher than America when it is the time to regulate. Are you afraid that a well-intended bill that is not designed in the proper way might put Europe and in the end Portugal as a Web3 market behind the rest of the world?
I think there's still going to be a bit of talks about it, because from what I've seen, there's a few talks about, like, what they say it's a bit of a loophole in this bill, because it just regulates companies based in the European Union for European Union consumers. So a company offshore with a European Union consumer won't be as regulated.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you know, I think we'll have a bit more news about it in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's definitely a story that will have more chapters for sure. So this was our three main stories, and before we move on to the next topic, which is marketing in Web3, a message from our sponsor, WallID.
WallID, what we're doing pretty much is making authentication on the blockchain, and not only on the blockchain, seamless. So what we are at the end of the day, we are an aggregator of authenticators and ID providers. So we make it easy for the app developers, so decentralized app developers, to onboard users that do not know how to use a Web3 wallet. So you have all the Web3 features without needing your user to know how to use a wallet. And oppositely to that, if you are a traditional web app developer, you can rely on the blockchain features and the blockchain capabilities without your user needing to go and owning a Web3 specific wallet. And well, we do this actually adding on top of it the ability to verify users' data based on all digital ID infrastructures out there. And the main thing is that we rely on the specific features of the blockchain and the crypto to ensure that all the data is owned by the users. Nobody has access to that data without the user knowing or actually authorizing it. So we only leverage on those crypto features to build our product. So pretty much that's it. If you're a web app developer, you want to onboard more than 3% of the people, then come talk to us. If you are a traditional app developer, you want to use the blockchain, but you don't want your users to go with all the crypto lingo, with all the crypto text, come talk to us.
Once again, thank you to WallID for sponsoring this episode. Moving on to our main topic, which is marketing in Web3. I wanted to start this, and I don't want to get too technical with this, so I'm going to start, of course, with an easy question, and it's for you, Ramon. You have been working with the marketing roadmap of several Web3 projects. What is the most common mistake or mistakes that these projects, once they try to get the word out that they exist, they make? So they are so eager to get themselves or their projects out there that they do these sort of things wrong.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think the most common mistake depends a lot on whether they are very Web3 native or they are external. potentially, if I would flag a very important mistake, is very often these projects or these protocols launch without building a community. I think it's very important in crypto to really start things from the community. Of course, you want to develop a product to get it started, but the whole point of decentralization and the whole point of crypto is to build together. So I think very often the community is kind of an afterthought and just something to maintain on Telegram and respond to people's questions rather than really build with the community. The best builders in crypto really realize this and start building with the community in mind from the first steps of the project.
Alexandre, is this something that Liisa hasn't had that many years? So as the head of marketing of the company, was this your first step?
Yeah, definitely. So Liisa, you know, we've been at it for a few months now. And like Ramon said, especially in the NFT business, it's very dependent on the community behind the project. So you know, it kind of combines when you compare Web2 and Web3. The community itself is it's the product and the investor of a Web3 project, and without a community that believes in the project, believes in the team behind it, and actually wants to contribute to its growth, there's not a very bright future for that project, you know.
Yeah. Ramon, in traditional marketing, there's the 4 Ps, right? The product, the place, the promotion, and the price. Those still apply when we think of the marketing strategy of a Web3 product, or are some of them that are kind of intertwined and you can necessarily separate them? Or is it any extra dimension that it's not in the traditional market?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. In a way, unless you're buying the token, you're necessarily buying a product in Web3, unless you're thinking of NFTs or something like that. You're rather using a protocol or sending traffic, transactions, volume, etc. through a protocol, rather than really buying something. So I guess that's a dimension that, depending on whether you see it from a token perspective or a product perspective, isn't really applicable. I think definitely promotion is applicable, placement is applicable, and the other one, of course, product will always be applicable to anything you build.
When you think, or when you started to think, and we already touched a bit on it, but I wanted to get a further step, which is when you try to communicate a Web3 company and a Web3 project, you can decide in different perspectives, right? You either try to bring more awareness to the company itself and what you're trying to do, or you are already trying to actively bring users and bring some traction to the platform. Mm-hmm. Are these strategies for those two perspectives, or are they done at simultaneously and at the same time?
Yeah, I think for that, a project really needs to see itself and understand in which stage they're in. If they're a really early stage and it's a very technical project or product within Web3, it would be best, for example, to first focus on raising awareness within the Web3 community, and then focus on onboarding Web2 users into Web3, which is, one of the biggest challenges there is right now, right? Because it's still a complex market. It's not that easy to understand and get into. So that's why you see many projects or companies like failing to onboard so many people. I think the last really successful one that we saw was Reddit. They had so many users already, and they did an onboarding so easily for the users. But I think it's something that really needs to be thought about, and companies and projects really need to take some time to really understand how the Web2 users still look at Web3. There's a bit of lack of trust and credibility yet still in the space. So I'd say those are the main, pain points for Web2 and Web3.
But do you believe that, for example, when a normal Web2 brand tries to communicate, they don't necessarily think on the side of education? For example, if you're trying to sell, I don't know, a game console, you are not trying to explain how gaming works.
Yeah,
but when you
know,
try to sell a Web3 product, you kind of feel the responsibility of providing education on how Web3 works. Do you believe that that completely puts the marketing in this area in a different state? Because you always feel you can't just talk about your product. You always need to kind of talk on the overall scope.
Yeah, definitely. And like Ramon said at the beginning, you know, it's in Web3, it's all about the community. So when you look at brands, for example, like Adidas, they've been in Web3 for quite some time, and they did a good job advertising during the World Cup, for example. And you know, they focus on building for so long, and then you have brands like Porsche that within 2 weeks they announced and they launched a project. And you know, you look at both these situations, and on one hand you really have a brand building a well-established brand in the Web2 world, building its community in the Web3 world, and another one that's well known, but you know, it's so rushed that it feels like a cash grab when they don't need it. So it's I think it's still a big challenge for Web3. And it's not a good look that puts on those that are actually trying to build a community and a product behind it.
But Ramon, do you believe that even if sometimes these campaigns happen really fast, as Alexandre said, when Web3 projects find a way to communicate together with a well-known Web2 brand, do you think it's easier for them to communicate that way rather than they would do it by themselves? Because probably people will fastly trust a brand of cars or a brand of clothing that they already know and not pay so much attention on the technical stuff.
Yeah, I think both can work. You just need to be very strategic about it. I think, for example, one of the best, I think there are kind of two routes you can do it. Either you find a very good strategic partner as a Web2 brand to enter into Web3. I think a perfect example of that is PayPal integrating with MetaMask. PayPal is a payment gateway. MetaMask is in a way another one. So it's the perfect match. That's one way. Another way, for example, I think one of the best activations, and not only what I think, but the revenue that they got from it speaks for itself, is Swoosh by Nike. They kind of did it solo. They did partner with Polygon to be their layer 2, but they just built their own thing. They built their own platform. They built their own just basically brand. And I think they did it very well because they tapped into something that people already liked, which is the collectible aspect of Nike, but they made it their own community. I think that was a very thorough process for them to create that deployment into Web3. And that's the reason it was successful. So it can work both ways. You just need to be very strategic about it. And I think something that I think the Porsche example is perfect that Alexandre put, which is that it was rushed. It was a cash grab. So it failed because of that.
Again, to you have worked, and if you take aside the Web2 component in marketing, when you're just trying to communicate Web3 projects on their own, and you have worked in several industries, are there areas now in Web3 that are easier to market than others? For example, I can give the Alexandre example with Liisa. It will be probably harder to communicate Liisa than like just a normal NFT collection. Am I wrong? Or it's easier to plan when you are trying to do these launches and these marketing roadmaps?
No, it's very different, definitely. I think there are some of the most obscure DeFi protocols that are super financy and only the New York Wall Street guys understand. Those are really hard to market, really. You need to kind of, you really need to focus on biz dev in many ways and just talking to people, really partnerships one-to-one. You kind of build legitimacy by working with the right people and not so much by blasting your information and putting out lots of content. So that's, for example, one example. On the other side, yes, probably an NFT collection, especially if it's not super Web3 native or it doesn't, it's not necessarily an access point to very Web3 native community, it's potentially something easier. Like I said before, the Sush example is perfect. For a Web2 person, it's a lot easier to enter the Web3 space through that and through one of these DeFi protocols. So yes, we definitely have to customize them a lot, and it depends a lot on how niche the product is.
Alexandre, you kind of are in this situation, right? It's not easy. Even in your case, you are kind of at the same time communicating a Web3 platform and a platform that it's also using AI. So you have kind of a double trouble of people trying to see if AI really works, and then is it a project that it's being launched on blockchain really going to work? What kind, and Ramon gave two perspectives, right? You can go either for the users, or you can go from the biz dev side, or for a specific niche. What kind of was your mindset when you tried to put Liisa out there and onboard your first users?
So, still having the platform in an early stage, our main focus right now is to gather as much feedback and insights as we can from our users. So we definitely, try to, we took the approach where we focus on the user. So, we, of course, we went just Web3, with Web3 people, we reach out to different projects and communities and try to leverage their audiences to use the platform so that we understand what their journey looks like within the platform and what they're trying to do or want to do, and we haven't provided yet. So yeah, it's at the moment and from the early stage, we really have the user in mind.
Yeah. One interesting question that I have, it's right now, the people that are working in Web3, either in terms of development or in terms of the marketing, as you guys have had experiences in Web2 brands that they are trying to bring to Web3. What and I will separate this question into two. What are Web2 marketing strategies that you often see applied to Web3 projects that simply don't work? Ramon, I'm starting with you.
Yeah, it's a good question. This is in a way debatable, but I think a lot of Web3 native people would agree, and that is ads. In many ways, ads are not very well received by the crypto community, especially for the most dev focused, the most technical people. For them, if you're running ads, it's kind of a red flag. You really need to earn the respect and earn the attention, and if you're buying it, that means you don't deserve it in a way. So that's potentially one of them. It's a red flag for a lot of people.
And you, Alexandre, was there anything that, based on your experience, and even that you tested and that you saw, yeah, I thought this was going to work here, but it's not?
Yeah, I mean, definitely what Ramon said, paid ads is the biggest one. Even though the crypto and NFT space runs a lot on Twitter, but it's just the way that things are communicated. It's just a means to spread out information, right? It's a space where credibility and trust really, stands upon everything else. And yeah, if someone sees a specific project running ads, that doesn't say anything to them, but if someone that they know within the space on Twitter that mentions a specific project or commends the team behind it and gives some social proof, that goes a long way.
Yeah, you both mentioned the community side as one of the main differentiators between Web2 and Web3, because of course in Web2 there are people that really like a brand or a product, but they don't necessarily are part of a community that really likes that product. And in Web3 things don't necessarily work that way. For Web3 projects that are trying to build a community, what are the best platforms to start doing so? Alexandre, I'm going to ask you first.
Yeah, so in the NFT space, the main ones are Twitter and Discord. You set up on Twitter to get a more of an outreach and an outlet of information and where to find people and projects and communities. And Discord is really where the hub of your communities and other projects are. So those are the main platforms that at least in the NFT space are mainly used. Then there's Telegram as well, which I've seen it's more used within the crypto space. But yeah, for NFTs, definitely Twitter and Discord.
Yeah, Ramon, based on your experience, how close are we to have like a native Web3 social platform that Web3 projects could use to communicate to a large base of users, investors, or business that might be clients one day?
That's actually developing really fast. One of the projects I'm most excited about in this space right now is Lens Protocol. Lens Protocol is a Web3 social media project being built by Aave. As of now, it's quite gated. You need to get access to be in it, but they will probably open it not too far from the next few months. And yeah, but basically what they are building is, if you think of Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as 3 different platforms with 3 different intents, where you have to create 3 different profiles. What Lens wants to do is you have one profile, but then you can create apps based on that profile to have a professional one, a more personal one, pictures one, etc. So that's really happening right now. And I think based on the whole controversy that Twitter is going through, potentially whatever Elon Musk decides to do or not do with Twitter in the next few months, plus the fact that this Lens protocol or DSO, for example, are very Web3 native, I really see a future in which most of social media in Web3 happens in either one of those or a new one that pops up.
But do you believe, Alexandre, and even looking to what is the future of marketing in this area, will there be a time where you have these sort of platforms, such as Ramon just mentioned, replacing the current Web2 ones like Twitter, like Reddit? Or do you believe that throughout time, they will always coexist and you will use them for different objectives?
I mean, decentralization being one of the main focus of Web3, I think that 100% we will go down the path of decentralized social media eventually. But I also think that Elon Musk intends to take Twitter within that space, because you've seen now the intents of integrating PFP NFTs within Twitter, and now you have the communities tab that's been allowed and that's been created on Twitter. So you're starting to see this community side in Twitter that you didn't have before. So I think over time you'll see Twitter kind of becoming the main hub for communities in Web3. At least I think it's where it's going.
Moving on to our final questions. Ramon, I want this one to be to you. One idea that I've debated with loads of people from Web3 companies is that it's completely different to communicate your project to a current Web3 user and to communicate your project to someone that still doesn't take part in the Web3 world. How should a project approach trying to communicate to the people who are already aware of the industry and some of the platforms, and how should they approach strategies where they can onboard the next generation of users that are not still in Web3?
This would be a Web3 project, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the first question you need to ask yourself is there really an incentive for a non-Web2 person to get into your project? Because at least for me, the process of going from Web2 to Web3 took months, hours of research. I had to understand a bunch of things. What's a blockchain? What's a wallet? What's a transaction? What are layer 2s? What are different blockchains do? How are they different? Before I got into the deeper things. So I think every project needs to ask himself or themselves: am I really the best gateway for a Web2 person into Web3? So that's the first thing I would ask. If I were to think of, I think it really depends on the type of project. Some, in my opinion, are just not really ready for Web2 right away. I think, for example, like I was saying, these very obscure DeFi protocols are going to have a very hard time at being appealing to a Web2 project. For example, exchanges, NFTs, games, and all of those types of protocols of Web3 products are going to be a lot more are going to have a much easier time to get the interest of a Web2 user. And I think it's also very important to keep in mind that one of the biggest incentives for Web2 users to join Web3 in the last couple of years is the economic one. Can they make money off of this? I think now that incentive is not gone, but a bit less intense than it was for the last couple of years. It adds an extra layer of complexity to the whole problem. I think one of the biggest narratives of 2021, 2022 was welcome to mass adoption, crypto is ready for the masses, we're going to onboard the next billion users to Web3. And if you look at the marketing of pretty much any blockchain, they might use that language, but they use it a lot less intensely because that narrative has not faded, but it's having a harder time at landing because of the current economic and market situation in crypto.
Alexandre, you already mentioned that when you tried or when you started to think about the marketing strategy for Liisa, you kind of first focused on already Web3 users, but actually Liisa could be relevant for any sort of investor, even if it's just focused right now on stocks or ETFs. But if sometime in the future they want to venture into NFTs, they could use your platform. So how could you see this shift in perspective based of course on the experience of your company, but based on the perspective of any platform that started focusing on Web3, but in order to reach some sort of sustainability, will in the future start to onboard these Web2 users?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, a product, a company, they need to understand where they are and in what stage the product is, right? So if a company doesn't have a lot of resources to fastly develop the product, it will be harder to develop something that's easier to accommodate the Web2 to Web3 onboarding, right? So it will be easier to integrate to get Web3 natives into your product first. And then once you hit the ground running and have some traction after that point, then it would make sense to start kind of understanding how you can onboard Web2 to Web3 users, right? So kind of have the mindset of developing a Web 2.5 perspective in the onboarding journey of the customer, right? And you know, it needs to be something stupid simple, easy to implement, and the onboarding experience for the user needs to be frictionless, you know. So yeah, but I think of course it will always depend on where a company is, where a product is, but if it's in very early stages and it's a highly technical product, but you need to have people on it fast, it will be better to start with Web3 communities and the Web3 native users. And then once you have some traction and you want to scale things up, of course, then you need to rethink about how you are going to onboard those users in a way that's easy for them to understand. And, you know, always having in mind, like, you need to show the product to them as if they never heard about crypto, NFT, Web3, whatever, and it needs to be easy for them, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. My final question for you both, and I'm going to start with Ramon, is what marketing trends in Web3 should people look for in 2023?
Marketing trends.
Yeah,
I think something that's gonna really thrive this year. I think the narrative is very strong about this being the year of the builders. Content, developer-focused content, building-focused content. I think there's going to be a lot of accelerators, incubator programs, really moving the needle towards helping new founders and potentially existing founders as well build the things that will thrive in the future. So I think there's going to be a lot of supporting content, building content, And the best ones, the ones that really figure things out in the last bull run or whatever time they have spent in crypto and are able to transfer that to the market, are going to thrive and position themselves as the leaders of the next bull run.
And you, Alexandre, do you have a different trend?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Ramon said, and I would add that I think in 2023 we will see how people will start to integrate and use AI in generating content, either for content marketing, for marketing strategy, or for content builders that that you see on Twitter every day. Because since like that hype of a few weeks ago with ChatGPT, I've seen a lot of people starting to integrate that into their strategies and in the ways of how they generate ideas and content, and I'm looking forward to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that will be a fun journey to go on for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, thank you very much for spending these minutes with me. It was really nice to talk with you and to get to know your work and your way of thinking a bit better. Thanks to everyone who was listening as well so far. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Spotify channel to keep up with all the episodes. Don't forget to follow DeNites on Twitter and on TikTok to get to major announcements. And also don't forget to go to DeNites website to see what kind of events they will have in the future. They are usually really great, so you for sure will have a good time. Once again, thank you for being here. See you next week, and good DeNites.